"I was just passing by," the rancher knocked, saying, and the Apache girl gave him a reason to stay. He had no particular destination that day. The ranch he managed was several miles behind him, and today he simply wanted to ride, to feel the rhythm of his horse beneath him, and to let his mind wander. He loved these moments when he was alone with the land, when the wide-open sky made him feel small but also free. There was a certain calmness in being surrounded by nothing but nature, where the only sounds were the wind in the grass and the soft padding of his horse's hooves on the earth. Daniel's horse, a strong brown mare named Belle, moved steadily along the dirt trail. Daniel let her pick the pace, feeling her muscles shift under him, enjoying the comfort of their silent partnership. He had been riding for hours and his body was tired, but his mind was alert. As they went over a small rise in the terrain, he spotted something unusual in the distance. Smoke. It rose in a thin column against the clear blue sky. It was not far from the trail, perhaps coming from a cabin tucked among some trees. Curiosity pricked at him. Daniel had seen smoke from far away before, but there was something different about this. It seemed deliberate, gentle, almost welcoming. He nudged Belle forward, riding toward the smoke. As he approached, he could see the cabin more clearly. It was modest, made of weathered wood that had been patched over the years. Smoke still curled lazily from the chimney, and a small garden in front showed signs of careful tending. It was clear someone lived here, someone who cared about their home and their surroundings. Daniel slowed his horse to a walk, careful not to startle anyone. He had grown up respecting the land and the people on it, knowing that a visitor's manners could mean the difference between being welcomed or being sent away. When he reached the cabin, Daniel stopped and looked around. There was no one outside. The garden was quiet, the wind rustling the leaves of a small tree by the fence. He dismounted and tied Belle to a post, patting her neck gently. "Easy, girl. We'll see who lives here," he murmured, more to himself than to her. He took a deep breath, adjusting the brim of his hat against the sun, and walked up to the front door. He knocked, once, twice. The sound echoed softly in the quiet air. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door creaked open slightly, and a young woman appeared in the doorway. She was tall and slender, with long dark hair that fell over her shoulders, and her eyes were sharp and observing. She wore a simple dress, the kind that spoke of practicality and care rather than fashion. Her presence was calm but cautious, and Daniel could feel the weight of her gaze upon him. "Hello," Daniel said, keeping his voice friendly and non-threatening. "I'm sorry to bother you. I was just passing by and saw your smoke. I hope I'm not intruding." The woman studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she stepped aside, opening the door wider. "You may come in," she said softly. There was no warmth in her tone yet, only a quiet curiosity. Daniel stepped inside and was immediately struck by how modest but well-kept the cabin was. The walls were lined with shelves of jars filled with herbs and dried foods. A small fire burned in the hearth, casting a warm glow over the simple wooden furniture. The scent of herbs and wood smoke mixed in the air, comforting and earthy. Daniel removed his hat and ran a hand through his hair, feeling slightly out of place but not unwelcome. "I'm Daniel," he said, offering a hand politely. "I didn't mean to intrude, I've been riding all morning and thought I might find a place to rest for a moment." The woman's eyes softened just slightly. She hesitated, then nodded. "I'm Naya," she said. "I wasn't expecting anyone today. You can sit by the fire. There's some bread and tea if you'd like." Daniel smiled gratefully and moved closer to the hearth. He took a seat on a wooden stool, feeling the warmth of the fire seep into his cold hands. Belle whinnied softly outside, and Naya glanced toward the door, then back at him. There was a silence that was neither awkward nor uncomfortable. It was a silence that invited conversation, if both were willing. "So Naya," Daniel began carefully, "do you live here alone?" She nodded, Mostly. My family lives a little further down the river, but I tend to the garden and the cabin. It's peaceful here, quiet, sometimes too quiet." Her lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, but her eyes stayed serious. Daniel nodded, understanding. "I know what you mean. Sometimes it's nice to have quiet, and sometimes it feels endless." He laughed softly. "I've been riding alone so long today that I think the wind is talking to me." Naya's lips lifted slightly at that. "The wind does talk," she said simply. "If you listen." Daniel raised his eyebrows, intrigued. "And what does it say?" She looked out the window at the open plains beyond the cabin. "It says many things. Some days it says danger, other days it says peace. You just have to be careful and watch closely." Daniel chuckled. "Sounds like good advice for life, too." They shared a quiet laugh, and for a moment the distance between them, stranger and local, outsider and insider, felt smaller. Daniel realized he was not just visiting a cabin. He had entered someone's world, a place shaped by care, wisdom, and experience. He felt both humbled and grateful. Naya moved to tend the fire, and Daniel watched her work. She moved with ease and confidence, stacking the logs, stirring the embers, adding just enough wood to keep the fire alive. Her presence was calm, steady, and somehow grounding. Daniel had met many people in his life, but there was something about her that made him want to stay, to learn more about her world and the stories she held. As he sipped the warm tea she brought him, Daniel thought about the road behind him and the road ahead. He had no plans to stop anywhere that day, yet he found himself lingering, drawn by curiosity and by something he couldn't name. Naya sat across from him, quietly attentive, occasionally glancing at him as if weighing what kind of person he might be. Daniel knew the trust would take time, but even in this first meeting there was a spark of understanding. Outside, the wind continued to whisper through the grasses. Daniel looked out the window, then back at Naya, and felt a strange sense of calm. He had been passing through, but perhaps, just perhaps, he had found a place worth pausing for. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but in that moment he allowed himself to enjoy the quiet, the warmth of the fire, and the presence of a person who saw the world in a way he had never known. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the plains, Daniel Harper realized that some encounters could change the course of a day, or even a life. He had come seeking only a moment of rest, and yet he felt as though he had already found something more valuable, a glimpse into a world unlike his own, guided by someone who moved through it with confidence, courage, and quiet strength. After that first day of meeting, Daniel found himself returning to the cabin more often than he had planned. At first, it was curiosity that pulled him, the kind of curiosity that made a traveler linger in a place that felt welcoming. But soon, he realized it was more than curiosity. It was something he couldn't quite name, a connection he felt toward Naya and the life she led. Each time he rode his horse toward her cabin, his heart beat a little faster, and Belle seemed to sense his excitement, prancing slightly under his hands. Naya, too, noticed his presence more clearly now. At first she had been cautious, as any careful person would be with a stranger. But over the days, Daniel's quiet respect and gentle manners began to earn her trust. She saw that he did not rush, did not demand, and did not try to impose himself on her life or her land. Instead, he observed, asked questions, and offered help when needed. Slowly, walls that had been built over years of caution began to shift, and she allowed him small glimpses into her daily routines. Daniel loved these moments. He found himself fascinated by Naya's knowledge of the land. She taught him how to identify plants, pointing out which ones were safe to eat, which were useful for healing, and which were dangerous. They walked together through the fields and the small woods near her home. She showed him how to track animals by the marks they left on the earth, and how to predict the weather by observing the sky, the clouds, and the wind. For Daniel, who had grown up on a ranch but always relied on modern tools and equipment, her methods felt almost magical, simple, natural, and deeply intuitive. "You see this plant?" Naya asked one morning, holding up a green-leaved herb. "It looks harmless, but it can make you very sick if you eat too much. You must respect it just as you respect the river or the animals." Daniel nodded, examining the leaves carefully. "I never thought plants could be so powerful," he said. "I mean, I knew some were dangerous, but you make it seem like every leaf has a story, a purpose." Naya smiled faintly. "Everything in this world has a purpose. We just have to notice it." Daniel admired her patience and the gentle way she shared her knowledge. She did not scold him for mistakes, even when he misidentified a plant or stumbled while trying to follow an animal trail. Instead, she guided him, correcting him quietly and letting him learn through experience. With each passing day, he grew more comfortable in her presence and more aware of the lessons the land had to offer. It wasn't just the lessons about the land that drew Daniel in. It was also the small moments of everyday life with Naya. The way she tended the fire in the mornings, humming softly to herself as she prepared breakfast. The way she laughed at his clumsy attempts to help. The way her eyes softened when she spoke of her family. These moments made him feel like he belonged, even though he was a stranger in a world that was not his own. One afternoon, while they were walking along a narrow trail near the river, Daniel noticed the way Naya moved with ease through the uneven terrain. She leapt over rocks, ducked under low branches, and guided him through paths he would have found impossible alone. "You make it look easy," he said, struggling to keep up. Naya glanced back at him, a teasing sparkle in her eyes. "It's practice," she said simply. "And paying attention. You need to watch where you step, feel the ground beneath your feet, and listen to the wind." Daniel laughed, realizing she was right. For the first time, he felt like he was not just passing through, but participating in something meaningful. He began to notice details he had never seen before, the patterns in the clouds, the subtle changes in the sound of the river, the way birds moved in the sky. Naya's presence taught him to slow down, to watch, and to appreciate life in a way he had forgotten on the busy ranch. As the days passed, Daniel also learned about Naya's family and her life in the Apache community. She spoke of her siblings, who lived nearby, and of the elders who taught her the traditions of their people. She shared stories of past generations, of how her ancestors had lived in harmony with the land, respecting its gifts and surviving its challenges. Daniel listened, fascinated by the richness of her history, and felt a deep respect for her world. In return, Daniel shared stories of his own life. He spoke of the ranch he managed, of long days spent tending animals, repairing fences, and watching the seasons change. He talked about his childhood, the lessons he had learned from his father, and the hardships of managing land in a world that was always changing. Naya listened quietly, sometimes asking questions, sometimes simply observing. She did not judge him, nor did she interrupt. Daniel found that in her presence he could speak honestly, without fear of misunderstanding or criticism. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of pink and orange, Daniel and Naya sat on a large rock overlooking the plains. Bell grazed nearby, and the air was filled with the gentle sounds of the evening, birds returning to their nests, leaves rustling in the wind, and the distant murmur of the river. Daniel turned to Naya, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. "You know," he said, "I didn't plan to stay this long. I was just passing through, like I said, but I don't think I want to leave just yet." Naya looked at him carefully, her eyes thoughtful. "Sometimes life brings us to unexpected places," she said softly. "It's not always about where we think we are going, but what we find along the way." Daniel smiled. "I think I understand that now. There's something about this place, about you, that makes it hard to leave." For the first time, Naya allowed herself to smile fully. It was a small, quiet smile, but it held warmth and trust. She had seen many people come and go, strangers who rode past without a second thought. Daniel was different. He did not simply observe the world, he respected it. He did not simply pass through her life. He wanted to be part of it. The next days were filled with shared work and quiet companionship. Daniel helped Naya repair a small section of the garden fence that had been damaged by recent winds. He carried water from the river, chopped wood for the fire, and even learned to prepare some simple meals. Naya guided him patiently, showing him how to balance work with care and how to move through life with attention and respect. One morning, while planting seeds for the upcoming season, Daniel paused to watch Naya. She knelt in the soft earth, her hands deftly planting each seed, her face focused and serene. He realized that he admired her strength, her knowledge, and her quiet determination. She had grown up in a world that demanded resilience and wisdom, and she carried those qualities effortlessly. Daniel felt both humbled and inspired. "You make it look easy," he said again, echoing his earlier words. Naya laughed softly. "Practice," she said, shaking her head. "And respect. Respect the earth, respect the work, and respect the people around you." Daniel nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He had come to this place to rest, to ride alone and clear his mind. But he had found something more. He had found a connection, not just to the land, but to someone who saw the world with clarity and strength. As the sun rose higher, warming their backs and casting long shadows across the fields, Daniel felt a sense of peace he had not known in years. He was learning, not just about the land, but about trust, patience, and the quiet power of being present. And in Naya's presence, he began to understand that some encounters were meant to change the course of life, not just fill a passing moment. By the time evening came, Daniel knew that his journey was no longer just about passing through. It was about staying, learning, and becoming part of something greater than himself. And for the first time, he looked forward to tomorrow, not as a day of work or duty, but as a day to continue discovering the world, the land, and the woman who had given him a reason to pause. The days passed quietly at first, with Daniel and Naya growing closer with each shared task and moment of conversation. The sun rose and set over the plains, painting the sky with brilliant colors as it moved through the heavens. Daniel's life, which had once been a routine of ranch work and solitude, now felt rich with discovery. He was learning not only about the land, but about the ways of a community and a culture that valued harmony, respect, and resilience. He had come as a visitor, a stranger passing through, but he now felt like a part of something far larger than himself. But the calm of the plains could be deceiving. One morning, while Daniel and Naya were preparing food outside the cabin, the wind changed suddenly. It was subtle at first, a shift in the direction of the breeze, but then the air became heavier, charged with tension. Naya paused, her hand frozen over the basket of herbs she was sorting. Her sharp eyes scanned the horizon, noticing clouds that had not been there moments before. "The weather is changing," she said, her voice calm but firm. "A storm is coming. We should prepare." Daniel followed her gaze, seeing the sky darken in the distance. Thick clouds rolled in, carrying the promise of rain and wind. He felt a familiar sense of urgency, the kind that comes when nature reminds you of its power. "How bad do you think it will be?" he asked. Naya shook her head. "Hard to say, but it will be strong. We must protect what we can and help others if needed." Over the next few hours, the storm arrived with fury. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, and the wind howled through the plains, bending trees and rattling the cabin. Daniel worked alongside Naya, securing the garden, moving tools and supplies inside, and helping reinforce the cabin's doors and windows. Belle was tied securely in a sheltered area, and Daniel checked on her, whispering soothing words as the storm raged around them. As the rain pounded the earth, they realized that the storm would affect not just their cabin, but the surrounding settlement and the ranches nearby. Rivers were swelling, and paths that had been dry and safe only hours before were now dangerous. Daniel knew that many animals would be at risk, and homes could be damaged. The thought of leaving Nea and the community unprotected was impossible to bear. "We should go help," he said, "even if it's risky." Nea considered him carefully, her eyes scanning the horizon again. "Yes," she said finally, "we must, but we will move carefully and stay together. We can't save everything, but we can do our best." With determination, they set out into the storm. The wind whipped against their faces, and rain soaked their clothing within moments. Mud made the paths slippery and treacherous. Daniel's arms ached as he helped clear fallen branches, and Nea's small frame moved with surprising strength and agility, guiding him through the worst of the terrain. Together, they navigated the flooded fields, checking on neighbors, rescuing trapped animals, and helping secure supplies. At one point, Daniel spotted a small herd of goats stranded on a rising mound of earth surrounded by water. The animals bleated loudly, their eyes wide with fear. Without hesitation, he waded into the cold, rushing water, holding one goat after another and guiding them to safety. Nea stayed nearby, giving instructions and encouragement. She moved with precision, directing him to stable ground, ensuring no one slipped or got injured. Hours passed like this, a blur of effort and concentration. Daniel could feel exhaustion creeping into his muscles, but he did not stop. He could not stop, not with Nea depending on him, not with the animals and neighbors needing help. The storm tested his strength, his courage, and his patience, and through it all, Nea remained a steady presence by his side. Her calmness inspired him, her quick thinking guided him, and her determination gave him hope. By the evening, the worst of the storm began to pass. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the wind lost some of its ferocity. The river had risen dangerously, but most homes and animals were safe thanks to their combined efforts. Daniel and Nea stood together on a hill overlooking the plains, breathing heavily and watching as the clouds moved on. They were soaked, muddy, and tired, but a sense of accomplishment filled them both. "You were incredible today," Nea said softly, looking at him with genuine admiration. "I wasn't sure at first, but you didn't hesitate. You helped when it mattered." Daniel smiled, though he was too tired for words. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said honestly. "You guided me, and I don't think I've ever worked with anyone like this before. You make everything feel clear." Nea's eyes softened. "We all have our strengths," she said, "and we all need someone to rely on sometimes." For a long moment, they simply stood there, letting the silence and the cool breeze settle around them. Daniel realized how much he had come to rely on Nea, not just for guidance, but for understanding, for companionship. He had come to her cabin as a passing traveler, and now he felt a bond that went beyond words, beyond explanation. That night back at the cabin, they sat by the fire, drying their clothes and warming their hands. The storm had left the air crisp and clean, carrying the scent of wet earth and grass. Nea handed Daniel a mug of tea, and he drank it gratefully, feeling the warmth spread through his body. "I never imagined a day like today," Daniel said, shaking his head. "I've faced storms before, sure, but this was different. I felt alive in a way I haven't for years." Nea smiled faintly. "Life is full of storms," she said. "Some are literal like today, and some are in our hearts. What matters is how we face them." Daniel looked into the fire, thinking of the challenges he had faced in his life. The responsibilities of running a ranch, the loneliness of long days, the worry for his family and animals. Yet, he realized that facing this storm with Nea had been different. He had not faced it alone. He had faced it with someone he trusted, someone who understood the land, the people, and the dangers that came with both. Over the next few days, they helped the community recover. Daniel learned more about Nea's people, their customs, and the way they supported each other in times of need. He saw how she earned the respect of those around her, not through force or dominance, but through quiet strength, courage, and care. And he felt honored to work alongside her, contributing in his own way, learning from her wisdom while offering his own skills. One afternoon, as they repaired a section of the fence damaged by the storm, Daniel paused to watch Naya. She moved with precision, tying knots in the rope and adjusting the posts with skill and confidence. Her dark hair was damp from the rain, sticking to her face, and her eyes were focused and determined. Daniel felt a swell of admiration and something deeper, an emotion he hadn't fully understood until now. He realized that his connection to her had grown into something strong, something that anchored him to this place in a way he hadn't expected. "You know," he said, finally breaking the silence, "I think storms are like life. They can come out of nowhere, shake everything up, and make you question yourself, but they also show you what really matters." Naya glanced at him, curious. "And what matters to you?" Daniel hesitated, then spoke honestly. "Today, it was helping. Being here with you, protecting what matters. It made me realize that life isn't just about surviving. It's about being part of something, caring for something or someone." Naya looked at him with a faint smile, understanding in her eyes. "Then maybe you're learning the right lessons," she said softly. The bond between them grew stronger after the storm. They had faced danger, worked together, and relied on one another. Daniel had proven himself, not just to Naya but to the community, and Naya had shown him the value of trust, courage, and patience. He had come as a traveler, a stranger passing through, and now he was a part of something bigger, a world of connection, respect, and shared responsibility. As evening fell once again, Daniel and Naya sat quietly by the cabin's fire. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered in the softened air and the wet earth around them. Daniel realized that life would continue to bring challenges, storms both literal and figurative. But now he felt ready to face them, not alone but with Naya at his side. And for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to imagine a future where he could stay, where he could belong, and where he could continue learning and growing alongside someone who had already changed his life in profound ways. After the storm had passed and the plains began to recover from nature's sudden fury, life slowly returned to its quiet rhythm. The air was still cool, but the earth smelled sweet with the scent of wet grass and mud. Daniel Harper and Naya had worked tirelessly over the past days to help the community rebuild. Together, they repaired fences, guided livestock to safer pastures, and checked on neighbors who had been affected by the storm. The work was exhausting, but there was a sense of purpose and unity that Daniel had never experienced before. Despite the satisfaction of a job well done, Daniel could not ignore the way his thoughts kept returning to Naya. He admired her courage, her intelligence, and the way she moved with calm confidence, even in the face of danger. But beyond admiration, he felt something deeper, something he could not fully name. It was more than friendship or respect. It was a pull in his heart, a connection he had never felt with anyone before. Naya, too, felt a shift in her emotions. She had always been cautious with strangers, careful to protect herself and her world. Yet Daniel was different. He did not rush her trust or question her choices. He worked alongside her, learned from her, and showed kindness not only to her but to the people and animals around them. Slowly, Naya began to realize that she had come to depend on him, not only for help with tasks, but for the quiet strength he brought into her life. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Daniel and Naya sat on a small hill overlooking the plains. Bell grazed nearby, and the wind whispered gently through the tall grasses. It was a moment of rare stillness after the intensity of the storm and its aftermath. Daniel looked at Naya, feeling the weight of unspoken words between them. "Naya," he said softly, "I've been thinking, I wasn't supposed to stay here this long. I came passing through, but now I don't want to leave. Not ever." Naya's eyes widened slightly and she looked down at her hands, For a moment she said nothing, and Daniel feared he might have overstepped. But then she lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes with a mixture of curiosity and vulnerability. "Daniel," she said quietly, "this world, my world, it's not easy to be part of. It takes patience, understanding, and strength. You've shown all of those things, but are you ready for what it truly means to stay?" Daniel swallowed hard, feeling the truth of her words. Staying meant more than just living in a place. It meant becoming part of a community, accepting responsibilities and embracing challenges he had never faced before. "I don't know," he admitted honestly, "but I do know that I want to try. I want to be here with you, with your people, with this land. I've never felt like this anywhere before." For a long moment they sat in silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The sky turned deep purple and the first stars began to shine. Daniel could feel his heart pounding, aware that this was a turning point, not just for him but for both of them. In the days that followed, Daniel's choice to stay became clearer, but it was not without its challenges. Some members of Naya's community were cautious, unsure whether this outsider could truly belong. Daniel understood their hesitation. He had been a stranger, someone who came from a different world, a different way of life. But with Naya's quiet support, he began to show them his dedication. He helped with the daily tasks, learned more about the traditions and customs, and demonstrated his respect for their ways. Slowly, the community began to accept him, seeing that he was not just passing through, he was committed. As Daniel integrated further into the community, the bond between him and Naya deepened. They shared moments of laughter, moments of learning, and moments of quiet reflection. One afternoon, while repairing a fence near the river, Naya paused and looked at him with a soft smile. "You've grown stronger since the storm," she said. "Not just in body, but in spirit. You've faced challenges head-on, and you've shown courage and patience. That is why people trust you." Daniel smiled, feeling a sense of pride and humility. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied. "You've taught me so much, not just about the land, but about patience, respect, and how to truly see the world." Naya's eyes met his, and for a moment neither of them spoke. There was an unspoken understanding, a quiet acknowledgement of the emotions that had been growing between them. Daniel felt the warmth of her presence, the strength of her character, and the depth of her wisdom. He realized that he had not only found a place where he could belong, but also someone who had changed his heart forever. However, as their connection deepened, so did the challenges. Daniel's past life as a rancher called to him, reminding him of responsibilities and ties he could not ignore. He thought of his ranch, the animals he had cared for, and the work that awaited him if he returned. At the same time, he felt the pull of this new life, this community, and Naya's presence. He was torn between two worlds, uncertain of where he truly belonged. Naya noticed his inner conflict. One evening, while sitting by the fire, she placed a hand on his arm gently. "Daniel," she said softly, "I can see that part of you still belongs elsewhere, but you must decide where your heart is. You cannot be divided forever." Daniel nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He had been afraid to admit it, but he knew she was right. His heart was no longer wandering. It had found something here, something worth staying for. He looked at her, feeling a surge of emotion he could no longer hold back. "I've decided," he said, his voice firm but filled with feeling. "I want to stay. I want to be here with you, with this community. I don't want to go back to the way things were. Not when I've found something so real, so meaningful." Naya's eyes softened, and a small smile played on her lips. "Then you are ready," she said. "Ready to face the joys and challenges of this life, and to stand beside me, whatever comes." That night, as they sat under the stars, Daniel felt a sense of peace he had never known. He had faced storms, challenges, and his own doubts, and he had come through stronger and more certain. He realized that life was not just about surviving, it was about choosing what mattered most and embracing it fully. And what mattered most, he now knew, was here, with Naya, with the community, and with the land that had taught him so much. In the following weeks, Daniel and Naya worked side by side to rebuild what had been damaged by the storm. They repaired homes, cleared paths, and helped neighbors restore their gardens and livestock pens. Each task strengthened their bond, each shared effort deepened their trust, and each quiet moment reminded them both of the connection that had grown between them. Daniel also began to understand the subtle ways in which Naya's people measured character, not by words alone, but by actions, by respect for the land and others, and by the willingness to face challenges with courage and humility. He saw how she had earned her place among them, and he felt honored to learn from her example. He knew that to be accepted fully, he would need to continue showing dedication, respect, and integrity in every aspect of his life. Through all of this, Daniel and Naya's friendship blossomed into something deeper. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet conversations by the fire. They learned each other's habits, dreams, and fears. Daniel discovered that Naya had faced hardships of her own, yet she carried herself with resilience and grace. Naya discovered that Daniel's strength was not just physical but also emotional, a steadfastness that could weather storms, both literal and figurative. One evening, after a long day of work, Daniel and Naya sat quietly on a hill overlooking the plains. The sky was a tapestry of stars, and the air was filled with the gentle sounds of the night. Daniel took a deep breath, feeling the calm settle over him. "Naya," he said softly, "I used to think life was about moving forward, always chasing something new. But now I see that sometimes it's about finding a place where you belong and holding on to it. And I've found that place, with you here with these people." Naya looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Then you have found your path," she said quietly, "and I am glad, because I feel the same. Life is unpredictable, but when you find someone you can trust and share it with, it becomes something beautiful." In that moment, Daniel realized that the challenges, the storms, and the doubts had all led him here. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, but through it all, he had discovered courage, love, and a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. And standing beside Naya, he knew that he was ready to face whatever the future held together. The days following Daniel's decision to stay were filled with a quiet sense of purpose and fulfillment. The storm that had tested their courage was now a memory, replaced by the gentle rhythm of daily life. Daniel rose with the sun, riding Bell through the plains to check on the livestock, tending to fences, and helping neighbors repair whatever had been damaged. Yet even in the midst of work, his thoughts often returned to Naya. He had come to her cabin as a passing traveler, expecting only a brief respite from his journey, but he now found that he could not imagine leaving. Naya, too, had embraced the new rhythm of life with Daniel by her side. She found herself laughing more easily, sharing tasks with someone who not only understood her world but respected it deeply. Together, they tended the garden, mended fences, and walked the plains to ensure the animals were safe. Their days were long and filled with work, yet each moment was tinged with a quiet joy, the kind that comes from companionship and shared purpose. The community, which had once been cautious of Daniel, began to see him as a reliable and trustworthy presence. He had proven himself during the storm, not just through his actions, but through his consistent respect for the people and their traditions. Slowly, he became part of the fabric of the settlement, helping with ceremonies, sharing meals, and assisting in tasks that required skill and care. Naya watched this quietly, proud of the man he had become and grateful that he had chosen to stay. One morning, as Daniel repaired a section of fence that had been weakened by the storm, Naya approached him carrying a small basket of freshly picked herbs and vegetables. "Here," she said, handing it to him. "You've done enough work today. Take a moment to rest and eat." Daniel smiled, taking the basket. "I don't need much rest," he said, "but I won't refuse a meal with you." They sat together on a log near the fence, sharing the simple food Naya had prepared. The sun warmed their backs, and the air was filled with the familiar sense of earth, herbs, and the gentle river nearby. Daniel looked at Naya, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and admiration. "I can't believe how much my life has changed in such a short time," he said. "I came passing through expecting nothing, and now I feel like I belong here with you, with this community." Naya smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Sometimes life surprises us," she said. "It shows us things we never expected and brings people into our world when we least expect it. You've brought so much to this place, Daniel. You've shown courage, respect, and care. That is why you belong." Their bond continued to deepen with each passing day. They shared stories of their pasts, their hopes, and even their fears. Daniel spoke of the ranch he had left behind, of long hours spent alone, and of the responsibilities he had carried for years. Naya shared her experiences growing up in the community, the lessons she had learned from her elders, and the challenges she had faced. Through these conversations, they discovered a deep understanding of each other's lives, a connection that went beyond words and gestures. As the weeks turned into months, Daniel began to integrate more fully into the community. He learned the traditional ways of caring for the land, the animals, and the people. He participated in gatherings, celebrated seasonal festivals, and helped teach younger members of the community about ranching techniques he had learned over the years. Naya watched with quiet pride as he embraced these new responsibilities, seeing how he adapted without losing his own sense of self. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Daniel and Naya sat by the fire outside her cabin. Bell grazed nearby, and the air was filled with the soft sounds of the evening. Daniel looked at Naya, feeling a mixture of gratitude, love, and hope. "Naya," he began softly, "I've learned so much since I came here. You've taught me to see the world differently, to care more deeply, and to value the people and land around me. But there's something I've realized even more clearly." Naya tilted her head, curious. "What is it?" "That I want to spend my life here," Daniel said, meeting her eyes. "With you, with this land, with this community. I want to stay not just for a season, but for all the days ahead. I want to build a life here alongside you." Naya's eyes glistened with emotion. She reached out, taking his hand gently. "I've hoped you'd feel this way," she said softly, "because I feel the same. Life is unpredictable and we can't know what the future holds, but I do know that I want to face it with you, together." The weeks that followed were filled with a quiet happiness. Daniel and Naya worked together, laughed together, and shared moments of tenderness. Their days were busy, but they always found time for each other, whether it was sitting by the fire, walking through the fields, or simply watching the sunset over the plains. Their bond had grown into a partnership built on trust, respect, and love. Daniel also became a mentor and friend within the community. He shared his knowledge of ranching, helped repair structures, and supported the elders in teaching younger members important skills. In turn, he learned from Naya and the community about traditions, healing practices, and the importance of living in harmony with the land. Through this exchange of knowledge, he felt a deep sense of belonging, a connection that went beyond friendship or romance. It was a shared life, rich with meaning and purpose. One day, while walking along the riverbank, Daniel reflected on how much his life had changed. He thought of the journey that had brought him here, of the storm that had tested his courage, and of the moment he had decided to stay. He realized that life's greatest rewards often came unexpectedly, through challenges, risks, and connections that were forged in moments of honesty and trust. Naya walked beside him, noticing his thoughtful expression. "What are you thinking about?" she asked gently. "I'm thinking about how life can surprise us," Daniel said, smiling. "I never imagined I would find a place where I feel at home, a place where I belong, and someone who makes everything feel meaningful. But I have, and I am grateful every day." Naya smiled, squeezing his hand. "I feel the same. Life is full of uncertainties, but when you find a connection that matters, it becomes something worth holding onto. We've found that, haven't we?" Daniel nodded, feeling a warmth in his heart that words could not fully express. "Yes, we have," he said. As the seasons changed, their life together became more established. They celebrated the arrival of spring, planting new crops in the garden, tending to the animals, and preparing for the challenges and joys of the months ahead. They worked together to improve the cabin and surrounding land, creating a home that reflected their partnership and shared values. Every task, whether big or small, was infused with a sense of purpose and mutual respect. The community continued to accept Daniel as one of their own. They saw him not only as a helpful presence, but as someone who had become part of their lives and traditions. Through his actions, he earned the respect and trust of neighbors who had once viewed him as an outsider. Naya watched with quiet satisfaction as he seamlessly blended into their world, proving that belonging was not just about being present, but about contributing, caring, and embracing a shared way of life. One evening, as they sat under a canopy of stars, Daniel turned to Naya with a sense of certainty. "I never imagined that a simple stop on a ride could change my life," he said. "I came passing through, expecting nothing, and I found everything that matters." Naya looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Sometimes the most meaningful moments come when we least expect them," she said. "And sometimes the people we meet can change our lives forever. I'm glad we found each other, Daniel." He smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. "Me too, Naya, me too." Their life continued with the quiet rhythm of work, companionship, and shared experiences. They faced challenges together, celebrated small victories, and found joy in the simple moments. A meal shared, a task completed, or a sunset watched side by side. The plains stretched endlessly before them, full of promise and possibility, and Daniel realized that he had finally found the home he had been searching for, not a place on a map, but a place in someone's life, and in a community that valued him. In the end, Daniel Harper was no longer just a traveler passing through. He had become part of something enduring, something meaningful. The cabin, the land, the community, and Naya had given him a reason to stay, a purpose to live, and a love that anchored his heart. He knew that life would continue to bring challenges, storms, and uncertainties, but now he faced them with confidence, strength, and a partner by his side. As the sun set one last time over the plains, casting golden light across the land, Daniel and Naya stood together, holding hands and watching the world they had built and nurtured together. The journey that began with a simple knock on a door had led them to a life filled with trust, love, and belonging. And as the stars appeared in the sky, shining brightly above the plains, Daniel knew that he had found not just a home, but a life worth living and a heart worth sharing.